even more illogical is a few months later, July 31st, 2021. So after the point that live crowds are admitted again, we've just had Money in the Bank 2021. We're in front of a live crowd. Business is beginning to pick up again. Bray Wyatt, of all people, gets released due to budget cuts. You just think, how can you possibly think that someone of his talent isn't going to draw return on investment?
A quick note, that rivalry that he had with Orton. So, when Orton burned him to a crisp, apparently he was supposed to come up with a new mask and a new ring attire or something now, and his character was going to change again. But apparently the creative were like, oh, it's too expensive, or they just didn't agree with it. So then they had to go with the. But now, like,
but he had that weird kind of burnt look, didn't he, for a bit, which just looked naff.
Yeah, it didn't really work. But coming to your point about later in 2021, how in the blue heck do you release Bray Wyatt?
Yeah,
that's like to me saying you've released, I don't know, Seth Rollins or something, or you've released.
How does he not get snapped up by AEW during this time? That's what I find incredible. I don't know do you know the reason?
Yes. So I think what I had heard, so obviously you have I think they had the non-compete clause and stuff like that. I think AEW did approach him at the time. So this is 2021. I think there's a lot of factors. And again, some of it is my theory, some of it is what I've heard. So one is AEW do approach him later on. So AEW is going through their hottest period. They've just signed CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole. So all these big guys. So I think maybe that kind of put a bit of, maybe he went in the dark. Okay, AEW maybe wasn't approaching Bray and they weren't too sure. But also then when AEW did approach him, apparently he was working on a movie in Hollywood, or he had started working in some kind of which I think the guy was made for. He was made to write scripts for Hollywood movies, how good he was. So I think that's why the reports I've heard, that's why maybe it never culminated into anything. But could you imagine if he had signed with AEW? I mean, unreal.
Because AEW would have given him we would have seen the untethered version, which I think we always got a neutered version of Bray. It was crazy to think because we got the Fiend, but we never got 100% what we could have got if he was allowed in AEW to have everything, everything loose. Incredible.
And fantasy booking. Could you imagine Bray in AEW feuding with, I don't know, Darby Allin or something like that, and having some crazy matches? I could see him teaming up with Darby Allin and then them two and having some crazy matches, and because Darby is not afraid to take.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about it, at the time, if he had jumped then, we could have got Bray Wyatt versus Sting, which is, let's be honest, the closest we would ever got to Sting versus The Undertaker. And given how well Sting was booked in his last few years of AEW, they could have done it in such a way that actually made it look really competitive. And I think they would have pulled out all the stops. And I think that's a dream match that could have been very, very special.
And I know the Dark Order had lost a lot of steam because John Huber had died the year before. Maybe he could have come in. I think there was some talk also that, okay, maybe a higher power or something like that, a new leader could have come in for the Dark Order, and it could have been Bray. Because Eric Rowan had already kind of had a few matches. He did have a tribute. He was on the tribute show for Brody Lee and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, Sting. What an amazing that would have been. Or him going to be in John Moxley revisiting the real. Like, I wasn't a fan of Dean Ambrose. He was a different guy. John Moxley's a different guy. I love John Moxley. Him having matches with John Moxley, or even revisiting his rivalry with Bryan Danielson. Now they're in a new place, and revisit that. So it would have been amazing.
what could have been. But he returns to WWE in Extreme Rules in October 2022. So we've seen these white rabbit teasers for weeks of this QR code. I mean, it's very obvious where this is going. The internet doesn't really allow any room for ambiguity. We all know what's happening. But the way he
Yeah.
returns, do you remember, with all the characters at different points in the building, was so cool.
Yes. The Wyatt Six showing up all from the
Yeah,
Firefly Funhouse, and
exactly.
then
So you
with
start to
that
see that.
door,
Yeah,
and then bam, and the crowd reaction was unreal, and it was rightful. You knew if he wasn't going to sign with somebody else, WWE had to get him back. And lucky for him, I think Vince was gone by that time. Triple H has kind of taken the reins. And Triple H obviously knew this guy since the NXT days, so probably had a lot of faith in him. But yeah, what a great comeback. I mean, return.
incredible. And you see this Uncle Howdy character introduced, which is of course played by Bo Dallas. He begins this feud with LA Knight. Little would we know at the time that LA Knight would be Bray Wyatt's last feud, and this was at a time when LA Knight was still finding his feet in WWE. He wasn't the megastar he goes on to become with the company. And crazy to think that the last Bray Wyatt match we have is this pitch black match at Royal Rumble 2023, which is one of WWE's early forays into being sponsored by a brand and then splashing that brand over every possible conceivable bit of canvas and screen that it can be splashed on, because that was basically the Mountain Dew match featuring Bray Wyatt and LA Knight.
Exactly. I was gonna say, man, call it what it was. It was the Mountain Dew,
Mountain Dew spot
dark match. With LA Knight lit up like like a glow stick. But I think the ending was amazing when he beats him, and then Uncle Howdy jumps from the top, bam, and there's an explosion. I think that bit was crazy, but
it was crazy.
not too sure about the
if memory
match,
serves,
though.
it was one of those moments where you could kind of physically see the crash pad as well. So with how it was shot, it kind of lost that moment because it's just. But anyway, but yeah, so crazily that ends up being Bray's last match. We don't know this at the time. He's pulled from programming in February 2023, and then suddenly, out of the blue, the wrestling world is absolutely shocked. So August 24th, 2023, so 2 years ago at the time of recording this, he dies. Windham Rotunda dies suddenly from a heart attack, just aged 36. We discover that this is due to health complications related to COVID and an existing heart condition. Happens in very close succession to Terry Funk's passing. So it's just
Same
this
week.
yeah, it's overwhelming. So I remember the tributes had like both Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk on the same screen. That's how close it was. So two of the biggest influencers in wrestling gone within days of one another. And
Yeah.
WWE is obviously completely shell shocked. This isn't someone who has died in days gone by. This is someone in the prime of their life, in a prime of WWE programming, who only months prior was their world champion. Suddenly dies without notice. And you know, there's tribute shows, there's videos galore, there's merchandise being created in his honor. They release a documentary about him in Bray Wyatt becoming immortal in 2024. I was there in Philadelphia for the Hall of Fame induction of Mike Rotunda, where as part of it, the US Express, where he said that, you know, you could see he was understandably broken, and he said that, you know, I wish that Windham could have been here. He'd have liked to see his old man go in the Hall of Fame, and he led everyone in holding up the lights on their phones, and but everyone, the fireflies, as they played the music. I mean, it was incredibly moving. And but also, I mean, you and I were there at All In, weren't we? The weekend that it was announced. I remember AEW led a tribute to him as well, a quiet tribute. I think it was before the show, but I remember playing the music. And
So it was. So I found out about his passing. It was one of my friends who texted me, and he told me Bray has passed, and it didn't register with me. Again, when it's like someone gone too soon, you know, it just doesn't register with you at such a young age, and you're used to seeing them. Like, I've just seen them. What the heck happened? So that was a bit of a shock to the system. But yeah, at All In, what I remember at All In was when Malachi Black and Brody King and Buddy Matthews, they paid tribute to him before that trios match when they came out, and the whole place was lit up like with fireflies, and they kind of paid tribute to him. They were wearing, I think, black armbands, if I can remember. But I think that was beautiful, and I know a lot of the guys were doing that night. So it shows to you the caliber of the man, and the impact he had, not just in WWE, but the entire wrestling industry, and what could have been if he was still with us.
And obviously, to us wrestling fans, a huge loss. But most importantly, he's a father and a husband at the age of 36. He leaves behind a family. His wife JoJo recently performed at All in Texas, which was a nice surprise, and begs the question of whether or not we're going to see more of her in the company. Obviously, we knew JoJo from WWE. Whether or not that's a one-off appearance or just might be more things to come.
Yeah, it was great to see JoJo. I didn't realize it at first, but she sings Swerve's indie theme, which instantly I picked up, and I was like, yeah, oh, okay, this is Swerve now using this theme, because I remember hearing that theme every time I went to Rev Pro, right. And we always used to hear that and loved it. So it was amazing hearing that, and then her. And then I was like, oh, that's JoJo, Bray's widow. So it was great to see her there, and kind of let's see, maybe we'll see more of her, or just it'd be really nice. It was good to see her.
And I mean, it's only 2 years since we record this. Paul Heyman recently shared a post where he said, years from now, when we look back and start to micro dissect what he did, I think we'll realize he's even more brilliant than any of us ever realized. And I think that is it in a nutshell. Like Bray Wyatt is Bray Wyatt was such an incredible character. Windham Rotunda, just an absolute genius of storytelling and psychology. And his work is going to be studied and revered for decades to come by talent coming into the business, by fans. And he left behind, and he continues to leave behind a huge hole for so many of us.